Good morning or good evening wherever you are. Good morning from the northern New South Wales area of Australia, and good evening if you're in Dallas, Texas. It's Dr. Greg Emerson with the Treat the Cause podcast and YouTube channel. Today we're talking basketball, we're talking melatonin, and we're talking some of the amazing things that Roby Mitchell, aka Dr. Fit, is doing with his work in the US. So if you're interested in any of that, keep watching because we're going to get started now. Hi, Greg Emerson here. Got a fantastic edition today of the podcast and the YouTube channel because I'm here with Dr. Roby Mitchell, aka Dr. Fit, who's currently in Amarillo, Texas, an area I'm fascinated with because I finished reading the book about Quanah Parker, the last of the Comanche chiefs, which was fascinating history of Texas, fascinating history particularly of Amarillo. And I've visited Dallas quite a bit in the past. And I know that you've been catching up with a lot of basketball players recently with some of your work with the laser treatment for joints. It's obviously a terrible tragedy about Kobe, and condolences to everybody involved with the Kobe tragedy. But I've been fascinated by some of your work with Kevin McHale, one of the idols of mine. And I know you treated Grant Hill recently.
Right.
I'm waiting for you to treat, when you treat Larry Bird, I'm going to come over. Catch up with Larry. Maybe Magic. It's a shame you never got to treat Pistol Pete Maravich because you could have perhaps extended his career, and I'm a huge Pistol Pete fan. So tell me a little bit about how was it meeting Kevin? I'm a big fan. I've never seen such a tall man with such unstoppable post moves.
Oh yeah, and we went through that in detail because certainly, the Celtics were a big fan when in my basketball heyday. It was either them or the Lakers, just about every year for the championships. But Kevin was born and raised up in northern Minnesota, and just has all those northern Minnesota behaviorisms. I mean, just a great guy. You meet him, right? Instantly friendship. And we have gotten to be such good friends. He and his whole family. His wife was a student of mine, and she related to me that he was going to have surgery on his left ankle because of, all the playing and blah, blah, blah. And it just worn down, right? And they've tried everything. And so he was going to have surgery. And so I texted her, I told her, I said, give me 3 days, right? And she didn't think I was serious about coming up there. But anyway, I drove from Amarillo up to Minnesota, stayed with them in their cabin up there. I treated him twice a day for 3 days. By the time I was finished, he's back out playing 25 holes of golf, right? And obviously, we canceled the surgery. And so he bought a laser. I taught his wife how to use it, and he continues to use it. And so, I was just up there. They go to Scottsdale, Arizona in the summer. So I was just back with them here a couple of weeks ago when I was there in Scottsdale, and just still doing great.
Well, that's fabulous. And he obviously had some good stories about his days with the Celtics.
And everybody has good stories about their days with the Celtics, but nobody can relate them to you like Kevin McHale. I mean, he is a master storyteller, right. And he goes into his Red Auerbach voice, and you get the cigar, and it is just, spellbinding, right? When You're just sitting there with him. And so, I'll sit there and I'll listen to him for a bit, and then I'll think, and I'll grab my phone and start recording, and get these wonderful stories.
Right. Does he still keep in touch with Larry?
He does. He does still keep in touch with Larry and Robert Parrish. DJ, I don't know if he keeps in touch with Dennis Johnson. Let's see, who else was on that team? Them, and then there's a couple of other guys. But they still keep in touch. And of course, he is an announcer for TNT.
Oh, okay.
Right? He announces basketball games. And so that's how the connection with Grant Hill came about, is that they commentate together. And so he knew that Grant was having these problems, and he said, man, you got to get in touch with Dr. Mitchell. And so, yeah, Grant called me, and I went to visit him in Orlando and took care of him the same way. And he bought a laser also, taught him how to use it. And so, yeah, no surgery for him either.
Right. There's some such good videos of Larry Bird on YouTube now, which is such a great resource to have of his trash talking days and some of the incredible things that team did.
Right.
It's really, really good to have. All right. So the laser's been going really well.
The laser is phenomenal. I just opened up one. So we're franchising that also. I opened up one clinic here, Health Connections, that has the laser. Shane, my trainer, if you have seen him on the Facebook, got him trained next week. He's opening up. He's going to open up in that big facility, right? That big facility that we're opening up next week. He'll be in there doing the laser. And then there's a chiropractor here that I treat. He had an old high school football injury, and I went over and treated his back. He's had back pain for 20 years. Treated his back one time with the laser, back pain gone. So he was so impressed, right, that he just bought a laser today, and he'll be doing it at his clinic now. So now we have 3 places right here in Amarillo that are offering the laser plus the Moab therapy that I provide. So, and more chiropractors are coming on board, and physical therapists also.
So let's just jump on now and talk about some of the work that you're doing. Particularly, let's talk about some of the products that you're developing, because I'm a huge fan. I can't get enough of the black seed oil. So tell us a little bit about some of the products that you've got going, because in particular, your black seed oil, I think, is phenomenal. So let's talk a little bit about the benefit of black seed oil and why yours is so good, and the special testing that you've done to ensure the quality of it. I've found that your MTF formula works incredibly well here, because where I live there's a huge mosquito problem, and I've been out there field testing that, and it works just as well for Australian mosquitoes as Texas.
That's American.
And of course the straight black seed oil, black seeds, I think are fantastic, and I've been using that a lot in my gut healing protocol. So let's talk a little bit first about the black seed oil. How did you get onto black seed oil in the first place?
So one of my patients actually made me aware of it, and I read a brief thing on it, and then it came up again. And so when something comes up a couple of times, then usually I'll go to PubMed and start pulling up studies to see if I can find if there's any scientific validation behind it, right? And that's not necessarily necessary for me to carry a product, or believe in a product, but if that's there, right, it helps me, with my validation, with medical professionals. So I went to to the medical literature, and man, I mean, it is just, overflowing with information, scientific studies on black seed oil, right?
I wrote a review article the other day, and I only got back to 2000. I was going backwards in time, and I got back to 2018, and I was exhausted. I had to stop at 2018 because I'd read so many studies. I'm going to keep going backwards long term, but back to 2018, there must have been several hundred studies.
So after I read those studies, then I imported some and started taking it myself, right? And I could definitely, see some improvements in some things, as far as energy, and not achy at all. I mean, after you see the workouts that I do, and sometimes that can leave me a little sore. With the black seed oil, nothing, right? And I'm talking, 63 years old. And so then I started. We started importing it and bottling it, and putting it on the website. And of course, I mean, kind of the rest is history, right? Facebook came out, and it just took off. But interestingly, this has been in the Middle Eastern medicine and in India, for centuries, right?
Yes, it's a very powerful Ayurvedic medicine.
Yes, yeah. The Prophet Muhammad said it was the cure for everything but death, right? And so once we once we started importing it and selling, I put the lady at the time who was my kind of right hand administrative assistant, Jody, I had her take it, and she accused me of trying to poison her.
Yeah, it can be rough.
Yeah, and so that's when I did the gas chromatography and mass spec study, just to prove to her, what was in there, and so I was really surprised. I mean, like 3 pages of chemicals came back, that are in this black seed oil, and these plants, whether it's black seed oil or the marijuana plant, they have what's called the entourage effect, and nature does not waste energy making stuff for no reason, right? So each one of those chemicals, it has an amalgam therapeutic effect when you put them all together, right? That's why you can't just extract one thing out of the marijuana plant and turn it into a pharmaceutical, because they all work together, like instruments in an orchestra. And so it's the same thing with black seed oil, over these whatever trillions or billions of years, it has put together a pharmacy of natural chemicals that are just, top of the food chain, right? And it's not only, so one of the big things is the antifungals that are in it, right? So candida is a big problem, so it kills candida. But then it also has this wide range of other chemicals in it that kill viruses, they kill bacteria, and I'm talking MRSA, right? Methicillin-resistant staph. Black seed oil kills methicillin-resistant staph. And then on top of that, the page had all this long list of sterols, which are these basic fat substrates, that we make cholesterol out of, in our cell membranes and the membranes in our brain. We need those building blocks, to repair all of those tissues. Black seed oil has that. And then it's got zinc and copper and all these amino acids like cysteine, right? And that's why it's so good for the hair, right? It's got silica. And so, it is just the Swiss Army knife of nutraceuticals.
I was reading a study yesterday showing that vapor-like sensation you get when it's in your mouth from, I think it's a thymoquinone that gives you that vapor-like effect, actually is, even though it's kind of a bit weird when you're doing it, it's actually very good for you because that vapor goes up into your nasal passages and penetrates the blood-brain barrier. So you're getting a blood-brain barrier effect from those vapors.
Right. So I initially thought that it was going to be the cure for autism, because autism is candida overgrowth and inflammation, immune system response to candida overgrowth in the amygdala portion of the brain. And so I thought that black seed oil would be the cure, but I couldn't take get any of the kids to take it. So we had to seek out another route.
Right.
Yeah.
Which country do this oil and the seeds come from? Where are they growing the seeds that you get?
So we have several vendors. So we have one in Bangladesh, we have one in India, we have one in Egypt.
Where they're growing the seeds?
Yes.
And
and pressing the oil.
You've had yours tested. So tell me a little about the testing that you had done.
Yeah, so again, it was gas chromatography and mass spectroscopy. This is the gold standard for chemical testing, what they use in forensic science and whatever, that type of testing, it fingerprints compounds to show exactly what's in them, right? And so we do that type of testing in order, whether it's black seed oil or other products, right, that we're curious about. We've got a lab right down there at Texas Tech, my alma mater. The head of the chemistry department down there, I've become friends with him, and he does the testing.
Right. I know that you said that yours is solvent-free. Do you think there's a problem with some different brands of black seed oil? I know there was a big controversy recently about olive oil, that we found that not all extra virgin olive oil was extra virgin olive oil, and often had a lot of other oil.
So it is, economically, it's the path of least resistance to put solvent in there, because you can extract a lot more with less work, right? And so, it's very tempting financially to do that, because you can make more money. And so some companies do.
Right. It was interesting because I was just, I haven't released a video yet, but I was just up in North Queensland, and I was visiting Casey, who's a man from the Torres Strait Islands. and he goes and collects wild coconuts sustainably and processes them with traditional methods that have been passed down for thousands of years. It's all done by hand using traditional methods. And, his oil costs a little bit more than the bulk produced coconut oil, but it was incredible to see how much care and love that he performed that he put into producing this superb coconut oil, and how it came out often yellow because he didn't just use the coconut meat, he was using the coconut kernel as well. And it was just amazing to see the love and devotion that his whole family put into continuing the traditional method. And of course, learning to do something over 40, 80,000 years, you pick up a lot of tips on how to do it and prepare it properly. And I think you're right.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the black seed oil. So there's a man and his wife. It's a family-owned business there in Bangladesh, and I've got video of them, making the oil, and it's the same thing. I mean, they take pride in putting out a good product.
Right. Okay. So you've been very, very careful about where you source the oil from.
Well, very careful and test.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the seeds. Why do you think the seeds? And I've put seeds in my gut healing formula as well as the oil, because particularly if you've got microbes, pathogenic microbes in the lower bowel, I want, and the good thing about seeds is that they're not often completely digested, and you may find them ending up in your large intestine, which I think is a good thing if you've got pathogenic microbes growing your large intestine, that you get this. For me, I like these because it's like a time release formula. I'm not going to absorb them all in my small intestine. I might not want, if I'm treating something in my gut, I don't necessarily want it all absorbed in my small intestine into my bloodstream. Maybe I want the medicine delivered straight to where it needs to work. And in this case, with microbes and parasites, and candida and yeast, I want it in my large intestine. And of course, what I see the seeds as being, from my perspective, are a time release formula. They're going to keep releasing the medicine as they go down through the gastrointestinal tract. What else do you think? I mean, I know you use the seeds for food a lot. Put it on
and that's initially the reason that I imported them was as a condiment, because you can grind those seeds up, and use them like pepper. They've got a very good flavor, so you can, put them on your eggs or put them in soups or put them on meats, right? Very good flavor. And so I started importing it for that reason. But then I started making it as a tea, and I'm not sure why I did that. And this was 2 years ago.
I'm not sure either. You have to convince me on that one.
Right. Two years ago, I was visiting. Me and my kid were down in. I was down in Dallas, and he took me out to eat. We were watching a football game, and we were at a restaurant. The football game was on, but across the way in the restaurant. And I looked at that television, and I could read the score, right? And which was just phenomenal. Again, 63 years old, And I said, wow. So I went back again, to do the research on these black seeds and found out about this huge carotenoid content that they have, and wide spectrum of carotenoids. So those things like the zeaxanthin and the other carotenoids, that attach to the retina, right? That's all in those black seeds. So that's another reason to take the black seeds. Then later on, we found out that using the black seed tea as an auxiliary supplement for cancer works out really well also. So we put all the cancer patients, on black seed tea, right? So 4 tablespoons of that black seed ground up and made into a tea, and you drink that, a couple of times a day, has really apoptotic effects on cancer, which means that it causes cancers to commit suicide, cell suicide. Yeah.
How does it taste, more importantly?
It doesn't taste terrible. It tastes like a really strong black tea.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
I'll try that.
So there's a little bitterness to it, but it's not terrible tasting at all. And, you know, if you like, you can put a little raw honey into it, you know, or stevia or whatever, you know, to mask the flavor. But it's very palatable.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about, you're also using the black seed oil in your new tooth formula.
Oh, yeah. That was
the tartar sauce.
Yeah, it's called
Tell
tartar
me a little
sauce.
bit there. I've just started using it, and I'm very fussy about my oral health regime, and I think that works in really well with the concepts of good oral health. And I know that you said that you got into it through the concept of oil pulling, and I think a lot of people have embraced that as a way of detoxification, whereas I think that, and you and I are on the same page with this, that really probably the benefit of oil pulling is not a concept of pulling out toxins from the body, but it's more about removing the microbial toxins or the pathogenic organisms and their toxins in your mouth.
Right. So you're doing with oil pulling the same thing that you're doing with Listerine,
yes.
Right? Or and if you look on the label on Listerine, what the main ingredients are, the active ingredients are, they are these plant antifungals like thymol, right, and menthol, and and so they're doing the same thing. So plants, just in general, for trillions of years, have had to protect themselves from fungi. And one of the ways that they do it is by creating these chemicals. Well, I had for a long time been using surfactant, which is Dr. Bronner's soap, and I'd mixed that with the black seed oil to do my oil pulling, right? Because the surfactant component just made sense. I mean, when you go to wash your clothes, you go to wash your dishes, you go to wash your car, you don't do it with just water, right? You have to have something that lifts those dirt grease molecules off, surrounds it in that lipophobic or lipophilic membrane so that it will dissolve, the water will dissolve it, right? That's what surfactants do. And so that just made sense to me. And then, I just got to hearing about the oil pulling so much, I decided, well, man, we should just make, and I'm just surprised that no dentist has ever come up with, with this idea, But anyway, I decided we'll put together a formula that springboards off the oil pulling concept. So we added in the black seed oil, we added in coconut oil, we added in liposomal vitamin C, we added in the essential oils, we added in chlorophyll, right? Which chlorophyll, another thing from plant, that's a powerful detoxer. A lot of the breath mints and so forth, they have the chlorophyll in there. Put that in there, and then we added the surfactant, right? So that it actually pulls that plaque off your teeth and it dissolves in the, in that fluid in your mouth, and actually really gets your teeth clean. You should have been able to, with your tongue, feel an actual difference after the first time you used the tartar sauce.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. And what we did to confirm things was we used these plaque disclosing tablets. They're these little tablets that have a dye in them. When you chew it up, it sticks. If there's plaque on your teeth, it'll stick to the plaque. And so with a class of high school students, we had them do that. We asked them all first, did everybody brush their teeth this morning, right? And everybody said they brushed their teeth, And so we put those plaque disclosing tablets all red all across everybody's mouth, right? Still full of plaque, because brushing does not remove plaque. That's why you have to go to the dentist, right, and get your teeth clean. Well, then we gave them toothbrush, we gave them the tartar sauce, and they brushed and rinsed for 5 minutes, and then we took pictures of their teeth again, all clean. Right? Even the kids with braces, and braces are really hard to clean.
Right. What I do is after using the toothpaste, I then use. I've had a local company here make up some coconut oil, ozonated coconut oil. So I put after I've done the tartar sauce, which you said is fine to swallow.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about the benefits of swallowing it afterwards rather than spitting it out.
So what happens when you do the oil pulling, right, or you rinse with the tartar sauce, is that kills bacteria and viruses and fungi that are inhabiting your oral cavity, right? And there's a lot of them, and many of them are not good. So when you kill those and it's in that fluid and then you swallow that, it goes down to your stomach. Well, then your hydrochloric acid starts to digest that into the protein antigens, right? And so then your macrophages will gobble that up, the antigens up, take them to your B cells and say, hey, these are some guys that we need to make antibodies to. Your B cells didn't make the antibodies. And that's a vaccination for you, right? That's how your body normally protects itself, is by getting exposed to bacteria, viruses, and fungi and making antibodies to them.
And that as you know, I've been writing a lot about translocation of microbiomes now. And again, it's very hard to keep up with the amount of scientific literature coming out about some of the organisms from the mouth, which may be okay in your mouth, but if they're getting into your cardiovascular system and causing inflammation in your cardiovascular system, it's a problem.
Well, now we know, so dentists know about that. They know, and that's why they'll give you an antibiotic with a teeth cleaning, right? Yeah. Because they know that those bacteria will go to your heart valves, right? What is just came out recently is that those bacteria, those microbes will go up to your brain and cause the inflammation that causes Alzheimer's, right? So even more important reason, right, to use something like the OMG tartar sauce to bring down the level of those microbes.
Yeah. So the tartar sauce, for me, followed by the ozonated coconut oil, it's just revolutionized my oral health and
right.
My gums, because maintaining the health of your gums is critical as we get older. We don't want to start losing teeth. So
no question.
That combination really good. So I'm still getting a coconut oil effect as well afterwards with the ozonated oil. All right, let's talk next about the MTF formula.
So mosquitoes,
ticks, and fleas. Obviously, right. We have a major problem where I live with mosquitoes and ticks, and so I've been, as you know, I'm pretty much every chance I get out in the wilderness or in my garden, and we have a huge problem with mosquitoes where I am. They even bite me through my clothes. And I've field tested that, and it's been fine for Australian mosquitoes just as much as Texas mosquitoes.
So you need to market that to your Navy SEAL buddies.
Yeah. Well, you need to get up to Alaska, because Tonya, who I'm working with in my yoga endeavors, tells me that the mosquito is the national bird of Alaska because they're so freaking big up there.
I mean, you would not believe the mosquitoes in Alaska. I mean, you could put saddles on them, right? They are huge, and they're bloodsuckers. And Alaska is that's a different mosquito.
Right.
Yeah. So the MTF, so the stuff that we were using here called OFF, right? It has, I forget what the chemical is in it, but I started reading a couple of years ago that the mosquitoes had developed a resistance to that, right? And so they were no longer being killed by that particular chemical. And that's when I started, Shane and I go out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're doing our workouts outside, and during the summer, and where we go by, one of the places, that we hunt by is a big lake. And so it breeds all those mosquitoes, right? And, they will come to get you. So I just started putting the black seed oil on as a deterrent for the mosquitoes, right? And it worked great. And so I just put a few other essential oils in there, that we already that have already been proven to repel pests and so forth. And and came up with the MTF formula. So, and all natural. So the other thing about these plants is they have already been probably, a billion years ago, they realized the concept of resistance. And they decided, okay, well, we're not going to keep these guys away with just hitting them in one spot, right? And that's what man medicine does. We pick out one soft spot for the bacteria or the virus or the cancer, and we create a drug that hits that one spot. Well, generation after generation, they figure out how to become resistant to that one weapon, right?
Yeah.
Well, what plants did, they said, well, we're going to make 100 ways to attack you, right? And you're not going to become resistant, right, to us. And that's how plants have survived, all these trillions of years, right? It's by using that concept of beating these critter resistance.
Oh, it was interesting too, because I was talking about when I was visiting the farm, the microgreens farm up in North Queensland. I was talking to Steve, the farmer, and saying that when I was in Arizona working with the Apache, there was an Apache healer I spent some days with, learning about how they used to choose medicinal foods. And he said that they used to look at plants which animals had attacked and the plants had thrived, because they knew then that, one, it was a resilient plant because it was growing in Arizona, and two, if it could survive, a bite, chewing on it from an animal or an insect, then it must be full of medicinal compounds, and that's how they chose the foods to eat. And I mean, it was interesting to see that traditional cultures who couldn't rely on, drugs and surgery, learned how to choose the highly medicinal foods and made a point of consuming them as foods for that reason, because they realized that these plants had developed a pharmacy of their own to prevent them from the attack and the same attacks that are now causing problems for us. But interestingly too, they also, and this is something we've forgotten, learned how to process those foods properly, because there's this big move now towards, moving towards a carnivore diet,
Right.
where plants aren't meant to be eaten and they've got these anti-nutrients in them. Well, traditional cultures worked out how to utilize foods properly to neutralize some of those things. And again, that's because we're this fast food culture now. We don't want to have to put in the work, but it's nice to see now people moving back towards, okay, let's learn how to ferment. Let's use how to soak nuts in water to activate them. Let's learn how to cook properly and prepare so that we can make these plants much gentler on our gut.
Right.
So it's a good lesson.
The other thing about what that correlates to what you were talking about, how those tribes picked food, is what I look at now is these very desolate areas, like here in Amarillo. Amarillo is semi-desert, right? And we have a lot of these plants that survive the most harsh conditions, right? And so now I'm going to get me a chromatography machine. But now, when I stop on the side of the road, and I grab and I chew on them, right, to, see if I can taste terpenes, or any of these other chemicals, that I know that are medicine in plants. It is a literal pharmacy out there just on the side of the road.
Just be careful of that prickly pear. I've stopped a few times and picked up some prickly pear fruit and regretted it afterwards, after I got some of those microscopic thorns in my lips and tongue.
Yeah.
That's why I've transitioned to dragon fruit rather than prickly pear.
Right.
All right. Yeah. Two more things. One, I want to talk to you about your new tortilla you've developed. Tell us a little about the tortilla, which I'm also bringing in for the Australian customer.
So that we have a big Latino Mexican culture here in the United States, and Mexican food very popular, and I love Mexican food, right? And so one of the staples is what they call tortillas, and so you take a flat of bread, and it be made out of corn or wheat, and you put fill it up with whatever fillings you like, right? And that's called a taco. And so when I got off grains and got off sugar and so forth, cleaned up my diet, that was a casualty. The Mexican food was a casualty, right? Kinda. I mean, I would still go and have everything but the rice, and the tortillas, but I like tortillas, and so I started trying to find healthy ones, and the ones that I found, either they taste like crap, or if you try to roll up your food in them, and they just break apart, right? And so I was sitting with a friend of mine who's an attorney here. Kirk Crutcher is an attorney here, and he's got a spread, that's out there where I was talking about in the wilderness, He's got all these mesquite trees out there. We were sitting at his place one day, and he started telling me about the culture of mesquite and Native Americans and how they used those mesquite beans, crushed them into a paste, and made flour out of them, and made their bread and a lot of sustainable food. Now, so of course, for me, the first thing that I do, right, is go back to PubMed and see what type of medicinal qualities, that mesquite had. And it's just chock full of medicinal qualities also. And so I said, wow, so I will work and I'll create a recipe to make tortillas out of this. So I mixed the mesquite with coconut flour and then what's called green banana flour, right? and then we put the black seed is in there and some other spices. And
so the black seed, what, you crushed up some seeds and put them on the tortillas as well?
Yes. Yeah. That's part of the flavor and part of the medicinal quality. And so we worked through several different iterations of that. And then actually one of my employees, Angela, that runs the store, perfected the recipe. And so, yeah, we have those available now. We've had them here and we put them in different restaurants around Amarillo, but we were not able to ship them because of the spoilage problem, right? Fungus get in there and that kind of thing. So I came up with another bright idea, which was to vacuum seal them, right? So now we're vacuum sealing them and we can distribute them wherever.
And what's the shelf life once they're vacuum sealed?
Yeah, well, I mean, so this is like astronaut foods. I mean, so it's not going to spoil at all.
Okay. Because the other good thing was when I was doing that research on black seed oil, I see there's a lot of research on it using as a food preservative. So, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that in the ancient times, I mean, and this is why the three wise men, why it was such a big gift for them to bring those essential oils to Jesus, right? Because those were the medicines at that time. Those were the food preservatives at that time, right? I mean, the essential oils were a big deal.
And tell me a little bit, I don't know that much about mesquite because it's not common in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, so mesquite, so I was talking about, these plants that survive in really harsh conditions. Mesquite tree is one of those, and it is the bane of, farmers and ranchers because, I mean, you can hardly destroy it, right?
Right.
And so something like that, and then there's a tree in Africa, that's kind of similar. I can't think of the name of it, but the medicine comes from that. But these plants that you can't destroy, I mean, that are really hardy and survive harsh conditions, that's because they got med. We should be tapping into those for medicine, right? And so the mesquite tree is one of those. And so we harvest those, the bean pods from that and crush them up and make the tortillas out of them. And you can get mesquite flour online. You can order it, for home baking purposes, right, and that type of thing. So it's out there on the web, and people know about the medicinal.
You take the beans out of the pod.
Yeah.
And just crush up the beans.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and then mix it into a paste, and it has a mildly sweet taste. Naturally mildly sweet. And just, we put those spices in there and it just has a wonderful flavor to it. If you just eat these tortillas by themselves, I mean, it is just, put a little real butter on there, and maybe a little honey. I've done that before, just going out the door. I'll, just eat that, maybe two of those, and that's breakfast. I'm full.
Anybody watching or listening, those mesquite, black seed, coconut, banana tortillas are available on my online shop for Australia and New Zealand at mitochondrialyoga.com. It's interesting too, because when I was up with Casey in North Queensland, it was interesting watching him when I talked about preparing those coconuts. And it was fascinating because I learned stuff I didn't know about coconuts. And I thought inside a coconut was the meat and the coconut water. But as the coconut starts to lie on the ground and mature and start to shed a shoot out to become a new tree, that coconut water is like inside an egg coming to a chick. The water turns into a coconut kernel. Have you ever seen the actual solid middle part of the coconut? I'll send you a photo because actually these coconuts not just have the meat on the inside, but as they mature to turn into a shoot, that water turns into a kind of a spongy solid inside, which was just so delicious to eat. So a lot of these times, again, as we said, we've forgotten about traditional ways of preparing stuff, and we take elements out of products or cheat on their preparation. And the idea of getting these mesquite beans and just hammering them down unprocessed into a flour fascinating. Right. And we've forgotten, and for the speed of production, we've taken a lot of shortcuts, which means we've taken a lot of medicine out of the food. So I love it that you're using these traditional foods and making them into a format that we can eat along traditional lines. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to talk to you about was your sweatshirt you're wearing.
Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. What's happening with those boys?
Well,
Yeah, I don't know. How long have I known you for? 10, 12 years?
right.
And you're still hanging in there, buddy. You're hanging in there every year. You're talking them up.
It's that childhood programming. So, when I came into the world and started watching them, they did really, really good, right? And then, in the 70s, and then they had that really powerful run in the 90s. So it's kind of like hitting a slot machine in Vegas, right? One time. I mean, you're addicted.
So you're hanging in there for life.
For life, man. I'm in there for life. But really, I wore this. I was on Doug Kaufman's show yesterday. I think it was, on Monday, and I wore this shirt to show that was my birthday, right? And I wanted them to see, what a 63-year-old looks like, when they follow this type of lifestyle that you and I lead.
And I see that this 63-year-old's recently taken up yoga. How's your yoga practice going?
Oh, going great. And, I really had trouble sticking with yoga. I've known for a long time that I should be doing it. And I would do some, for a month or whatever, and stop, and then I'd pick it up again. I could not stick with it, right? And I'm not, well, one reason is I'm very stiff, right? And it's difficult for me to do yoga, right? Is one reason. And the other reason, is just my, mind is always going. I'm always having ideas, and starting companies and that type of thing. But I found this instructor that she comes to the house, and she's very good. And she has really got me on a really good regimen. And I've just seen such improvement, right? If you saw the video of me, was it Tuesday, one day, I'm kicking my leg up. My karate kicks now are back up to above your head. Right. At 63 years old.
Well, the yogis always say that, the spine flexibility is a big part of the aging process and how old you are. So it's become a huge focus for you. Man, my month in Bali doing my yoga instructor training was just an incredible experience. In fact, one of the things that I was there, I was staying in a place called Canggu, which is just up the coast from Denpasar. The training was in Ubud, which is kind of the spiritual center of Bali. But I was going to this organic cafe in Canggu, and they had this dish which was tequila-soaked mahi-mahi in tortillas, and with just a huge amount of plant medicine in there, and it was just so delicious. So I can't wait to get your tortillas in a whole pile over here and start using them for my seafood and salad dishes.
Right. Were you doing yoga before you went to Bali?
A little bit, but then I decided that I really wanted to, it's a fault of my brain in a way. I just can't be a diver. I've got to be a dive instructor. So I thought, if I'm going to be serious about this, then I want to learn how to be really good at it. And so I went in for this crash course, and I was there with a fabulous group of people from North America, mainly. And it was at a time that I really needed it as well, because it's not just about yoga; it's about meditation, it's about breath work, and we did some breath work sessions there, which were just mind blowing in terms of release of DMT from the pineal gland. And it was funny because I'd done a lot of breath work sessions before and experienced what it could do in terms of DMT and opening up neural pathways. And a couple of the meditation teachers took us on breathwork sessions and didn't really explain to people how powerful it might be. And until you've done kind of holotropic or shamanic breathwork, it's hard to imagine that could. I know that you have done some psychedelic experience with ayahuasca in Central America, and it's hard to imagine that breathwork could give you a similar experience, but it's phenomenal what it can do in terms of DMT and the pineal gland. And I think some of these people who weren't familiar with breathwork got a real pleasant shock about the extraordinary experience you can have from breathing. And in a way, I didn't want it to be as powerful as the plants, because I hold sacred plants medicine in such high esteem, but it was fabulous to see, you know, and because I do all my cold thermogenesis training and breath work has been such a long tradition in Ayurveda and yoga training and meditation, it was fabulous to see how profound an experience that you can actually have just from simple learning how to use your mind and your breath work. Awesome. All right, awesome. Dr. Roby Mitchell, thank you so much for your time. Thank you everybody for watching. As I said, all of Roby's products are available at my yoga clinic in Northern New South Wales, and also available online at mitochondrialyoga.com. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, make sure you subscribe to the video, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, like the video if you could, share it to people. And if you want to support my work, there's my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Dr. Greg Emerson, where I wrote exclusive articles. Got a fabulous one coming out tomorrow where I talk to a top cryptocurrency expert, which is going to be fascinating. Thank you for much time. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you all next week. Thanks, Roby.
Thank you, Greg.